Okay, so let's start.
Hey everyone, I'm Naitik
And I'm Shivansh.
and this
I'm Sébastien, developer advocate at AWS.
and today we are going to record an awesome episode surrounding AWS. Okay, let's start.
Hello, thank you for having me in the first episode of this podcast. I'm very honored.
We are honored to have
We
you.
are on it as well. So, explain, give a bit out
Just introduction to
introduction.
AWS.
Introduction about AWS in general.
Yes,
No.
in general, just like
What is the cloud?
So give an introduction about yourself. Have you got into
Okay.
AWS?
Mhm.
What skills or what habits led you to AWS?
Okay. I fall in love with the cloud in 2010 when I first saw Amazon EC2. It was like an eye-opening moment for me. I said, wow, I want to be part of that story. At the time I was working for Sun Microsystems, which was a company that sell hardware for data center. They were also the inventor of Java. Maybe you know more Java than hardware inside a rack. And when I first saw the cloud, I said, okay, the on-premises data center, that's something from the past. The future is the cloud. And for once, I was right, because I'm here 15 years later talking about the cloud, and on-premises data center are becoming less and less relevant. I applied 3 times to enter at Amazon. The first time it was to become a technical evangelist, a developer advocate, and I failed the phone interview. Second time, 1 year later, I tried to apply as a solution architect, first solution architect in Europe. And I went through the physical interview into the office, but they chose someone else at the end. And I really want to be part of that story. So I kept looking at the job opening, and I saw that job of technical trainer. I said, why not? I already deliver class. I like to speak in front of people. Remember, I wanted to be technical evangelist, so it's the same. It's just being trainer is the same, but longer. You have 3 days with your class instead of 45 minutes in front of an audience. And that one I passed. I don't know why, but this time it was good. So I became technical trainer, and that was really good to learn AWS, because to deliver a class you need to learn and to know all the theory behind the cloud as well. Be able to answer any type of questions you might have during 3 days of class. So it was a fantastic learning experience for me. But after training, I discovered Alexa, the voice assistant, and they were hiring a team to help developers, and they help companies to build skills for Alexa. A skill for Alexa is like an app for your mobile phone. And so I became solution architect and then solution architect manager for Alexa in Europe. Amazon, it's not AWS, it's like 2 separate companies. And then after 3 years in that role, they were looking for a developer advocate that can speak French, and I knew the hiring manager. They say, are you still interested? Yes, this is what I want to do since 2010. So it took me almost 10 years. In 2019, I joined the team, and since then I'm part of the developer advocate team.
So if a newbie wants to start their journey with AWS, so what are the basic services they need to get in touch, or they need to learn that services?
Not just services, like if I'm a 20-year-old and I want to get into AWS.
So what
What's
are the
the roadmap?
basic things I need to know?
The service? No, not the service, you said.
The roadmap to get into AWS.
To be hired at AWS. It really depends on the role, because we have roles that are not technical, like a business development manager, an account manager. They are a bit more technical than other company, but it's still a sales position. We have people working for marketing, for human resource, for legal. So we have all types of roles. It's not only for us techies, developer to enter at AWS. I think the first thing to do, but that's like a long-term thing, is what you're doing now. It's to be part of the community and join a user group, meet people from AWS as well. Most of the people from the user group start to know the developer advocate, some solution architect in your country. That allows to create a network, to hear about opening of roles and things to come. Never be ashamed or afraid to ask. Is there a job open in your team right now? I can give you yes, in that country or in that country. Look at Amazon.jobs. All the jobs are listed there, not only the one from AWS, but also Amazon, because Amazon is a large company. You might decide to work in IT for Amazon, not for necessarily for AWS. Amazon is the biggest customer from AWS, so you will work with AWS technology at Amazon as well. There is Kuiper for the satellite, there is Prime Video, there is Alexa, Kindle, the retail, of course. So the opportunities are huge. And then typically when you spot your job saying, oh, this is in my country, this is something I can see myself, check the seniority level, because if we are searching for a senior VP something, maybe you should not apply now, at least to when you start your career. You will waste your hope and your effort for that. But have a good resume. Most of these days LinkedIn is a good resume, but it's important still to have a resume. The hiring process is in 2 or 3 phases. The first phase is an interview with the recruitment person that will just check the reality. Are you available? Are you motivated? What is your salary expectation? Just to see if there is a fit. Then the people from recruitment pass the CV to the hiring manager, and the hiring manager will make a selection just based on the CV, nothing else at that time. And if the CV is selected, the hiring manager will have a phone call with you. So it's typically a 1-hour interview where we will talk more about your technical skills. I'm talking about AWS here. For a technical role at AWS, it will be what you know, what you don't know. Knowing AWS is not always a prerequisite. I hire people that are really beginners on the AWS side, but I feel that they have a super good general knowledge, deep in different aspects, and learning AWS is something you can learn later. If you can learn AWS. So it's important to have the foundation correct. So it depends on the role. Some of the roles require you to be an expert in that or that or that. Some roles are more open. As a hiring manager, I like to ask very broad technical question, like describe everything that happens between the time you type www.google.com enter and the time you see the page. Explain everything. So you have to start with DNS and then explain that it will connect, the browser will open a connection to probably a load balancer that will go to a front end, that will go to a back end, and then depending on the answer, I like to dive deeper. Okay, let's explore that load balancer thing that you talk about to see how much a person knows about the general architecture of internet. I remember I had that question in my interview. In my interview, I start to explain, okay, so once the PC has the IP address, it will open a TCP connection, so it needs to send a packet to the router, so it will make an ARP connection to find the Ethernet address of the router on the local network, and the guy say, okay, stop, maybe not that level of details, let's go back one layer. But I mean, there is no wrong answer to that question. Depending on what you know, you will be more detailed in some aspect and less detailed in other aspects, and that's okay. It just depends on what they are looking for at that moment. So that's the second step. If you are selected for that step, then you have it used to be a full day interview on site. Now it's mostly over video conference, but it's still 5 or 6 interviews with different persons from the team. And these are not going to check your technical skills, maybe one over the 5, but the other will check other soft skills. So at Amazon, we have something called leadership principle. These are like the directive philosophical guidance of the company. For example, customer obsession. We are obsessed about our customer. Another example is learn and be curious. Yes. A leader needs to learn all the time and be curious. So we have 14 of these. And the 5 person that will interview you will have 1 or 2 of these leadership principles to check, to evaluate. Are you good in customer obsession? Do you do things for you? Or do you think about your customer? Do you do things for short term or for long term, and so on? And we have a bank of questions that are using a methodology called STAR, S-T-A-R, situation, task, action, result. So we will ask you questions like, tell me about a time where you took over a specific task or responsibility that was not part of your role, but you felt it was important at that moment, and explain me why. And so we are going to ask you to to check what was the situation first, so that we can understand the context. What are the tasks we ask you to do, or the external event like a customer asked you to do? What are the actions that you did, and what was the result? And we love numbers at AWS, so if you have results like the customer was happy, give me 5 stars, or we reduce cost by X, or we improve the latency, we reduce latency by X, blah blah, we love this type of thing. And all the interviewers will have questions like that. It's quite exhausting. You have 5 hours of interview, sometimes in one day, with this type of question. After that, your brain explodes. And nobody talks to each other, the interviewers. So I'm not going to tell my colleagues what I think about the interview. Guess what? We write a report with summary, with the strengths and the weaknesses, or the areas of improvement for each of the leadership principles, and then a general summary for that candidate. When everybody has entered their summary in the system, then we can read the other, and we have a meeting all together that always starts by reading. So we all join the meeting, and the first 15 minutes everybody is reading the summaries from the others. And alongside with the summary there is also a vote saying yes, I'm inclined, or no, I'm not inclined. And then it depends on the vote. When everybody is not inclined, it's usually quite fast. We have a short discussion and we try to understand why we bring someone to the interview if everybody is not inclined. Maybe we miss something in the phone screen because we make the candidate lose 5 hours of his life and 5 hours for each of the interviewer plus the meeting, so that's not a good experience. When everybody is inclined, we still have a discussion to be sure that we didn't miss anything. At Amazon we say dogs are not barking. That's coming from a Shakespeare book where someone managed to steal someone in a house and the dog was not barking because the dog know the person. So what are the signals that we are missing? Maybe we miss something, what we are not seeing right now. Yeah. And we ask ourselves that question. But if everybody is inclined, most of the time it's pretty short as a discussion as well. And when we have a mix, which is the reality for the majority of the case, then we have a real discussion. We try to understand, maybe there are some red flags that I was inclined, but maybe I didn't see something that the other person see. Or to the opposite, I had a red flag, or I had a challenge in my interview, but this can be compensated by the strength that other so. And so we, after reviewing all the summaries and having the discussion, we vote again, and then there is a decision, hire or no hire. Sorry, that's a super long answer again, but that's the hiring process within Amazon. And I have one more thing to add about that. Tell me if you want me to stop. There is one person from the interviewer pool which is not part of the team, which is coming from another team, maybe someone from Amazon, someone that has nothing to do with your team. We call that the bar raiser, and the responsibility of that person is, as the name implies, to raise the bar, to ensure that over time we do not lower the expected level of about the people, because you know her hiring manager might be under pressure to deliver a new product, and we need to hire 15 person in my team. So okay, that person is not exactly up to the standard of Amazon, but I need to progress. And so the bar raiser is there to say no, sorry, that person is not to the level, and the bar raiser has the final word. So even if all the team and the hiring manager wants to hire the person, if the bar raiser say no, it's a no. And that's super effective because it allows to keep the level, to keep the consistency of hiring in the team. Sorry for that long answer.
Going to the services back, so what are the basic services provided by the AWS, just for a beginner to learn?
The basic services provided by AWS, did I understand the question correctly? Yes. Basic services are what we call foundational services. Yes, security, management of access and permission, IAM, identity and access management, and it goes with something less known but crucial as well. It's called STS, security token service, that give temporary access token for applications, so security. Virtual machines, Amazon EC2, so fancy names, but everybody calls that virtual machine. We call that Elastic Compute Cloud, EC2. and the stockage that goes with it, so EBS volumes, that's block storage that you can attach to virtual machine, object storage, S3, and then the basic of networking, like VPC to create your own private network, load balancer to load balance requests. So that's really the auto scaling maybe that allows to have more EC2 instance or less EC2 instance. So even if we as developer we use less and less virtual machine, these services are really the foundation of the cloud, because the service that developers are using like Lambda or SageMaker or Bedrock, they are built on top of these. They use EC2, they use EBS. And I think it's important for every cloud user to know the foundation. I'm back to the same idea, even if you're not going to use it, but understand the underlying principle of it.
Okay, so can you just give a brief about a service named Lambda?
I love Lambda. That's one of my favorite AWS services.
Yes.
So Lambda allows us, developer, to write code and to deploy that code in the cloud without having to care about where it's going to run, on which machine, which operating system. So to understand why Lambda is so fantastic, we have to roll back to the 90s or the 80s. If I'm a Java developer in the late 90s and I want to deploy my Java application, I need to have a hardware, a machine, to put that machine in a rack, power, network, install an operating system, might be Unix or Linux now. You have to install the Java runtime, the JDK, blah blah. Maybe you have to install additional libraries, curl, security, OpenSSL, whatever. That's a lot of work just to deploy your application. As a developer, I don't want to do that. And this is what Lambda does for you. So we call Lambda serverless. It's not true. There is a server, but you don't need to manage. I don't need to manage that server. I don't even know if it is Windows or Linux. I don't need to know. I just know that it's a server where there is Java or Node.js or Python already installed. And I can just deploy my code there. And AWS, not me, is responsible to creating an instance of that server, or 100 or 1000 if there is a lot of traffic, and they will manage the traffic and the load balancer, and if there is no more traffic they will kill everything and I stop paying for it. So that's magical, because I don't need to have a server running 24/7 and pay for it. I just pay by the invocation and the number of the time of CPU that is used, counted by milliseconds. So if I can use a fast programming language like Swift or Rust, my Lambda function would be more efficient than in Python or Node.js, and I have nothing against those writing in Python. It has tons of advantage, but for raw performance, let's face it, binary compiled language is more efficient, so I will pay less money as well. So that's the magic of Lambda. It's a serverless execution environment to deploy code. And how do you trigger that code? How do you invoke that code? It might be reacting to an event, like a file arrive on S3 and you start processing that file. So it's event driven, or it might be behind an API gateway, for example, to expose a REST API.
Okay, so what are the something more things which can be implemented to make it better?
What? Sorry,
What are the
I didn't
things?
hear. It's not that I don't understand, I didn't hear you.
So what are the things we can implement in that thing so it could be more better and more efficient?
With Lambda?
Oh yes.
How to be more efficient with Lambda? Sorry again for if the goal is efficiency, which is not always the case. Sometimes it really depends on the use case. It might be perfectly valid to use Java or Python on Lambda because you have few invocations per day. It doesn't really matter if it runs for 10 milliseconds or 1 second. So it really depends on the use case. But if the goal is to be efficient in terms of CPU execution time and memory execution time, then go for language that are compiled. Rust, Swift are good example right now. Rust is super popular these days. That have low memory consumption, because one of the characteristics of Lambda is, as a developer, I have to choose the size of the environment where it will run with. Small VM and large VM, but as a developer I can only choose the memory. So, and the more memory I choose, the bigger the CPU will be as well. It's like automatic. You know that if you have 500 meg of memory, you have that CPU. If you have 1 gigabyte of memory, you have that CPU. And the price increase, the price per millisecond increase. So if you have a programming language that is more efficient in terms of CPU execution and memory footprint, it will reduce the execution time on Lambda, and so it will reduce the cost for you on Lambda as well, because your function will run faster. You can have more function in parallel running, and they will consume less CPU cycle, less milliseconds.
What about Amazon Bedrock? Like, can you describe, like, for our users and personally for me also? I don't know what is Amazon Bedrock.
Okay. That's one of the new services at Amazon, and I really love it as well. So you know large language model?
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to deploy a large language model on your own, you have to create a virtual machine with a GPU. You have to install libraries, driver for the NVIDIA GPU, Python libraries. Then you have to download these huge files that are large language model, and that's not it. You probably need an API in front of it, a web. So that's a lot of work. And Bedrock does that for you. So Bedrock is like the Lambda for large language model. I mean, with Bedrock, we have a catalog of large language model from vendors such as Anthropic, Claude, Meta, Llama, Mistral, Amazon, of course, with Nova. So all these models are available, and Bedrock offers an API, a standard API. So you have one API, it's called Invoke Model, or Converse, with two API to be precise, to talk with these models. So you can write code that runs on your laptop or runs in a Lambda function that invoke this API. We run the model on a shared infrastructure. It's not just for you, it's for all the customers, so you don't have to pay by the hour for that infrastructure. You pay by the number of tokens that are going in and out of Bedrock, and you receive the response. You want to try a different model, you just change the model ID and you run your code again, and in the majority of the case it works. So that's the basic usage of Bedrock. It's a serverless service to access off-the-shelf large language models. Then after that, it can do tons of other things. It can create agents, it can create a RAG application with vector database, it can create guardrails, so security, to ensure that the response is safe or secure and polite and appropriate. You can manage your prompts, so you can have a library of prompts with versioning on your prompts, so you refer by the prompt to the prompt by the ID, so you don't have to hard code the prompt in your application, which is super convenient as well. So there are tons of other services built around Bedrock, but the foundation to understand Bedrock, it's like serverless access to large language model. Did you understand Bedrock?
Yes. Yes.
Do you want to try Bedrock now?
Yes. But I have just one other question. So I can implement a RAG application on Bedrock, and Bedrock will just generate an API key.
Bedrock is not an API key. You need an access key, secret key.
Like that.
But Bedrock does everything. Yes, you give your data source, and this is the S3 bucket where I have all my PDF file. In the console, you choose which vector model you want to use. Currently, we have two, Amazon and Cohere. Then you choose the vector database. It can be create one for me, and you don't care, or you have already your database and you import your database, but then you have to manage it and blah 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 blah, but you have the choice. And then you wait a bit, the time to read all the document, to chunk, to vector them, to populate the database, and then you have in the console a small chat where you can test and an API for your application. And that's pretty much it. We manage the model for you, we manage the database for you, the vector database for you. So it's literally click 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 if you do it in the console. It's good to learn the console, but in reality, use infrastructure as code, so write code to deploy that, and you can use the SDK or the CLI to create that.
Okay, so what are the more services that you use in your personal life and love the most?
And students like us can implement this service in their projects.
So the one I'm using the most, it's probably Lambda. Yes. I'm producing a podcast. I have a Lambda function that will take my files, massage them, and publish the podcast automatically, and that Lambda function is triggered automatically every Friday morning for the publication to regenerate the website. So that's the Lambda. I also love Amazon Q Developer CLI, so it's a coding assistant on the command line. I type Q chat, and then inside my project it can inspect the file to understand the context of my project. I can tell him, hey, can you type this command for me and detect what is a compiling error and change the source code so that to remove that compiling error. And it's becoming super good at that, much faster than what I can do by myself. So that's the service I'm using the most. For you guys as student and developer, have a look at Lambda, seriously. And everything which is serverless and event driven, this type of architecture that reacts to events, so file arrive on the street, triggers a Lambda, or step function, which is an orchestrator of different services, like a workflow amongst different services. There is event bridge. It's a bus where an application, Lambda for example, can post an event, and then you have other applications that listen to event with filters and things like that. So if you want to publish an event like, hey, there is a new order arriving in my company, you might have multiple systems that will listen to this event and say, oh, there is a new order. So I do that. I send a confirmation email to the customer, or there is the accounting system that writes the accounting and so on. So it allows for a lot of flexibility for communication between applications. Serverless is probably the way to go because it scales automatically. You only pay what you use. If there is no use during development, typically the usage is so low that it costs zero. You can develop for Lambda for zero. You have 1 million free invocation per month, every month. So as a developer, it's more than you need, or for a small project.
Are there any student advantages or student discounts or student offers that
Like
we can
Amazon was giving credits to students,
Mhm.
right?
Honestly, I don't know. We used to have that program called Cloud Club and Cloud Captain to work with students in university and give some advantage. I know we are working on a new version of that program right now, and I don't know the details of that. So there is no, but there will be.
Yes. Anything you would like to tell or convey to our community before we conclude this thing? A message for our community?
Learn how to develop, learn coding, and be curious. Be open.
Yes.
That's the best thing you can do.
Be curious is the theme.
Sorry,
It's actually a good thing.
Be curious. Yes.
Yeah. So it's great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Nice experience.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. See you next time.
Bye bye.